Well, hey everyone. Today we're going to do a little bit of maintenance on the old Benelli. We're going to do the initial oil change. We've got about 500 miles, 600 miles on the thing. It's ready for its first service. I've already gone through and warmed up the bike, which is what you want to do before you change the oil, and we'll go ahead and get started. Alright, so there's a few things you're going to need to change the oil on the bike. One of the things is a 13 millimeter socket. This one here will allow you to actually loosen up the bolt that allows the oil to drain. You're also going to need an 8 millimeter socket, which is a smaller one here. The 8 millimeter socket will be used on the other side to open up the oil filter housing and allow you to remove the oil filter. So one of the first things you're going to want to do when you get started doing the oil change is you want to obviously let your bike warm up for about 5 minutes or so. We've already done that. And the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to crack the oil fill on the other side of the bike. I'll take you around real quick. So right here on the top of the opposite side here is the oil fill cap. You want to crack that, loosen it up. You could probably even take it off if you want, but I'm just going to loosen it so nothing drips or falls down in there. That will help allow the oil to drain when you open it on the other side. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to throw a rag over it and use my pliers to do it. Probably could do it by hand, but just want to use the pliers to loosen it up. Make sure that it's clean around it so that there's no dirt or any grit or anything like that that's going to drop down in there. Alright, we're just going to leave it resting right on top. Leave it kind of loose so that the air can get in there so when we drain the oil. Alright, let's go back around on the other side. Alright, so the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take out the oil plug and let the oil drain. You're going to want to be a little bit careful when you do that because depending upon how long you let your bike run for, the oil might be a little bit hot. So we only let it run for about 5 minutes or so, so it shouldn't be too bad, but we're going to be a little bit careful when we do that. So we're going to take our 13 millimeter socket, put it on there, and crack the nut and loosen it up and pull it out. Here we go. Should be able to loosen it up and then pull it right out by hand. And the oil should drain right out into the pan. I've got the bike up on a stand, and so I'm actually going to drop it down off the stand so it leans over to the left side and lets that oil drain out a little bit better. Alright, looks like it's just about finished draining out of there. One of the other things I wanted to show you here was the oil filter. I'm going with a KN112. It's by K&N. It's a great filter. It's only a few bucks on Amazon, but it's the KN112. I'll pull it out of the box and show it to you here. They're just a small little oil filter, pretty basic. Looks just like that. And that'll be put in on the other side of the bike. We'll go around the other side of the bike and open up the oil filter housing and pull it out. Alright, so we've come around to the right side of the bike and we're going to go ahead and take the housing off for the oil filter. Pull this over. It might have a little bit of drip, so I'm going to pull it over a little closer. There's 3 bolts here. This is where the oil filter is housed. You should be a little bit careful when you open it up. There is a spring on the inside that holds against the oil filter, and you don't want to have that drop down into your oil pan, so just be real careful when you're taking it off. 8 millimeter socket. Here we go. That's what you don't want to have happen. Stuff fall down into the oil pan. You might have to put a little bit of tension back on the housing because that spring behind pushes out, and it pushes out against the screws and prevents them from coming out real easy. But once it does, there it is. As you can see, there's this spring on the inside. You want to make sure you're careful and don't lose that, and make sure you don't get any grit or grime or anything like that on the ring that goes around that seals it. Alright, so here's the pull that out. There's the old filter. Pretty disgusting. Put that in there and let it drain. Clean up some of the oil that dripped all over the place. You can see there's quite a bit of oil still left in the where the oil filter goes. You can just tilt the bike a little bit and dump that out. Pretty simple. Just tilt it over and it should run down and dump out into your oil pan. Just going to use a rag and clean out the rest of it that's up in there. Make sure you don't get any grit, grime, or anything on the actual in the housing there or around it. You don't want that. Alright, once you've got that all cleaned out, ready to go, we're going to clean out the actual cap itself. Just like that, real simple, straightforward. Alright, we'll pull out our new filter and place it in. Alright, so once you get the filter in there, don't forget to put your spring back on. Actually has a little bit of an arrow on it here to show you which one is the top. Hold it in there and get your bolts threaded in by hand. Take your 8mm socket, 8mm socket, and tighten down the cover. Alright, so now we've got the oil filter replaced. We've got all the oil drained out of the system. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put the oil plug back in and then fill it with oil, and we should be ready to go. Alright, so now we're going to place the oil plug back in. The oil plug has this screen on it, and that's just to keep grit and grime, things like that, out of your system. So, but you want to take a look at that, make sure that it's clean, make sure that there's nothing obstructing the holes or anything like that. You also want to make sure that there's nothing like metal shavings or anything like that inside, caught in the screen or in your oil. That could be signs of something going wrong inside the bike. But everything looks good, it's all good, it's all clean. Make sure that this gasket around your oil plug is good. Make sure it's not hard or cracked or broken or anything like that. This one looks great. Same with the O-rings around the oil screen. If everything looks good, we're going to just kind of take a quick wipe down of the hole there for the oil plug. We'll put it in. Make sure you don't cross thread it. That would be not a good thing. You should be able to screw it in by hand to a point. Alright, then we're going to wipe it down real quick. Make sure there's no sand or grit or anything like that in there. Again, we'll get our 13mm socket, place it on there. Tighten it down. Don't want to over tighten it because you don't want to strip it, but hand tightening is good. Once you have that replaced in there, we're going to go around the other side and we'll put oil back in the system. Alright, so we're back over on the right side of the bike. This is where we add the oil in. When we first started doing the oil change, we actually loosened up the oil fill can, or the oil fill cap, so that the oil would drain properly. Now we're actually going to take it off and we're going to add oil in. This bike takes 10W40 is the recommended oil that we're going to put in it. So that's what we're going to put in. Right down here, this right here is actually the oil level indicator. It's just a little window, and it has a low and a full line on it. The bike actually is sitting on the kickstand right now, so it's a little bit tilted to the left. We'll go ahead and we'll add oil in. We'll tilt it so that it's straight up and down. We'll check it, see what it looks like, and then we'll, if we need to, we'll add more. The bike is capacity is 1.1 liters, so let's add some oil. All right, that's 1 quart in. Let's tilt the bike and take a look at the level. We're just about full. You can see it's hard to see, the oil is nice and clean and clear, but it's right about there. It's just below the full level, which is probably where it should be with just 1 quart of oil. So we're going to pour in just a little bit more and go from there. Alright, so we added a little more oil. Let's go ahead and turn it straight up and down and take a look at the indicator. That looks good. Looks like we're full. So we'll go ahead and replace the fill cap. Again, same thing with this here. Make sure it's clean. Make sure there's no dry rot, rips, tears, anything like that. This is the first oil change, so this thing's still really good. But make sure that you don't get any kind of grit or grime or anything like that on there. Carefully wipe down the inside of the oil fill cap so you don't get any grime. Once again, same thing. And we'll just carefully thread that on there. You should just be able to hand tighten it on, and you should be good to go. Alright, so that does it for the oil change. Very simple, straightforward, nothing to it. A couple of things you're going to want to do after you do change the oil. Take it for a ride, take it for a short ride, let the engine warm up, let the oil circulate through, and then go ahead and check your oil again. That way you can assure that you've put enough oil in there. And also at that point in time you want to check for leaks. Maybe there's a bolt that you didn't tighten down, maybe there's something that came loose on your ride. So go ahead and take it for a ride, check the oil, but that's very simple. There you go, nothing to it. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a great day, and we'll see you next time.